Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 43 of Podcast vs. Enemies, a Destiny Massive Breakdown show. We have a brand new season to jump into with Season 19, and it brought with it a lot of weapons, some new activities, and, some new story beats that we are excited to jump into as it unfolds and kind of leads into Lightfall. Court, who do we have to thank before we get into this week's episode?
Hello, Saint. Yeah, we are fresh into a new season. We are not far from Lightfall as well, not far from 2023. Yes, on that theming, a lot of folks have been posting their Spotify Wraps 2022. I've been seeing a lot of folks sharing their most listened to podcast. And of course it's us, because, we make these 3-hour mammoth episodes. So by default, our podcast will be at number one. No, honestly, it's been really cool seeing all that. Really quite touched to see a lot of folks share that particular metric. Thank you very much for listening to us through 2022, and we can't wait to do it all again for 23. Some other feedback, just that I've been kind of watching, whether that's on Twitter or Discord. Folks seem to really love our conversational episodes, and just enjoy listening to our thoughts and opinions for multiple things. I think this episode's going to be a kind of pseudo conversational. A little bit of breakdown, just kind of what we're looking forward to for various weapons. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your feedback. Of course, you can send us all kinds of feedback directly to any of our socials or via the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord server. Positive, critical, constructive feedback helps with the trajectory of the podcast and how we present and break down builds, activities, and much more in the PvE sandbox for both the established players and the new lights. So don't hesitate to reach out if you've got any questions or any ideas for builds. We are all happy to talk about Destiny. We do, of course, use Chartable to aggregate our podcast reviews, but this may take a little bit of time if you're a non-US listener, just for the reviews to appear. Alternatively, you can just directly send your review to one of us. And of course, we just want to extend very special thanks and appreciation to everyone that supports PvE, whether that's downloading and listening to our show, discussing it in the Discord server, various other social media sites, or supporting us via Patreon. Impetus, what have we got to talk about this week?
Hello, Court. Hello, St. Kabir. Glad to be back for a new season with you guys yet again. We are doing first impressions, so we're going to be talking about the general schedule of the season, what you can look forward to. We're talking about weapons, perks, mods, all sorts of new stuff. We're going to be touching briefly on the activities and the story beats as well, what we're looking forward to, what we're excited about. Before we jump into all of that, we do want to talk about our own podcast schedule here. So just as a heads up, we will be taking a seasonal break for Christmas and New Year's after next week's episode. So the tentative plan is to return for the week of January 8th, but do keep an eye on the Destiny Massive Breakdown socials and our Discord for any scheduling changes in case that changes. Finally, we are not entirely done before we head out. We are stepping outside of the Destiny Massive Breakdowns network to visit another Destiny podcast very soon. That is the Destiny Digest show produced by Danfinity. So stay tuned for that episode. We will, of course, share it on our socials as soon as it's up, and we are looking forward to saying hi to Dan and talking about Destiny in a new space. So with that in mind, let's ask ourselves, what did we do in Destiny 2 last week? I think we know the answer already. Court, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, of course, it's a new season, so it's new things to run, to kind of experience. This is, of course, our only season of this year where we don't have a massive elemental rework. We did get a kind of medium-sized changes and revisions to previous elements and stasis. But in terms of what I've been doing, just kind of running usual Heist Battlegrounds, which we'll talk about very shortly as well. Been running quite a lot of that. I have been really enjoying that. Deep Stone Crypt is the raid for this season in terms of refreshed loot, and I have ran, that was, I think, 2 runs now? I think it's 2, yeah. And of course, Dungeon, we are hot off the heels of the new Dungeon dropping over the start of the weekend. So, been running a lot of that as well. Just get some good, interesting rolls. We aren't going to be talking too much about those weapons. We'll save that for a future episode. But yeah, some interesting stuff we've got to talk about over the course of this season. Saint, what have you been up to?
Definitely jumping into Deep Stone Crypt. I did some runs with my buddy Shua Verde, who is doing some Game to Give streams, which is great. Always love to support that. I'm really trying to get a posterity with Voltshot and Rampage, which, I mean, we'll talk a lot more about these weapons and all their perks that they have, but some really spicy stuff. Love to see those weapons that that weren't super popular on their initial release kind of get a second chance. And yeah, this season is got a lot of characters that I really enjoy. So I'm kind of looking forward to the story unfolds. I like the initial outset. I'm definitely looking forward, as far as like the narrative stuff goes, to see where Clovis and Rasputin and Anna Bray and Osiris kind of all come to this nexus. A lot of interesting characters there. And the new dungeon. This is like the first release of anything that I got to see when I was working on contract at Bungie. So it was really cool watching, people stream kind of the race on Friday. I watched Scaro and ATP. They were just crushing it. They were like well skating through the jumping puzzle. I mean, those guys are nuts. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting feeling to kind of to see something for the first time, having seen a earlier version of it while at Bungie, and this is kind of the first piece of that, of anything that's come out. So that was really cool, and it's a great dungeon.
Did you work, if you can answer this, did you work on anything part of the dungeon?
No, this is, like when I had seen it, it was, I would say the vast majority of it was already completed. There was no voiceover lines or anything like that, but like the encounters, the mechanics, everything was like mostly finished, because you got to think this is season 19 versus, we pretty much were working almost exclusively on season 20 and like Lightfall, right? But yeah, so it was mostly there, but like, the story wasn't hooked up. There's no voiceover lines, and like all the collectibles and stuff like that is kind of added in as like finishing touches, which I don't think, now that it's out, I don't think it's I think it's all right to talk a little bit about that, but yeah.
Cool.
Impetus, what about you, man?
Yeah, this has been probably one of the busiest weeks of Destiny that I've played in a long time. Did do 2 Deep Stone Crypt runs, did a King's Fall run for some Pinnacles, a couple of dungeon runs, and then plenty of that Heist Battlegrounds. So loving all that stuff, fun activities to run, fun weapons to get, and yeah, let's actually jump into kind of our Season 19 highlights, our schedule, what we can look forward to in terms of the Nightfall rotation that's coming along here. I can start us off with just some general season stuff. So this is a 12-week season, and for context, most seasons are 13 weeks, so this is a little bit shorter, but it will take us all the way up to Lightfall, which launches on the 28th of February. The dungeon has just launched this past weekend, so we'll break that down in the future, give you some guidance, some tips on what to run, our impressions, and then, of course, the weapons, the very spicy, fun weapons in the near future. We just said before a little bit earlier, Deep Stone Crypt has gotten a perk pool refresh, and those weapons have also received an origin trait. We'll be covering those as well this season. By the time this episode comes out, we will be in the first week of Dawning. So we'll be taking a look at that, giving our impressions. Looks like there's going to be some fun stuff to grind out for in that as well. We also mentioned at the start of the episode that all of the elemental subclasses have been 3.0'd, so they are all at least on that level of parity. We did get a medium-sized pass this season to address some of the outliers, but again, the larger balancing pass, as Bungie has notified us, will be coming post-Lightfall when they can include Strand in that as well. So we'll have 5 elements getting balanced out here, which will be a pretty mammoth undertaking. But we're excited to see what the future of Arc, Solar Void, Stasis, and Strand looks like when that does come around. So, of course, we'll give our thoughts on all of that in the very distant future of the next year. So, Saint, what does that Nightfall rotation look like? Sorry, Court, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say I am looking forward to talking about everything in one umbrella, just to see how everything compares with each other. Because I know we have been talking quite fondly and critically with various aspects in general. I mean, I don't mean the actual aspects of the subclasses, but the general kind of strands of each subclass, and just to see how, Stasis meets up towards, something like Void or Arc. So I do look forward to this kind of big grand episode, if we want to call that, sometime in the future.
This season for the Nightfall rotation, we have a couple returning ones, and it will start off with Insight Terminus. We got Scarlet Keep, Birthplace of the Vile, The Corrupted, The Glassway, and Warden of Nothing. The actual kind of Grandmaster stretch of that will start on January 17th, and it'll go, one per week until February 28th. So I believe we've covered all of these in the past, in previous episodes and stuff like that. So we'll probably be keeping those shorter, just talking about loadouts and kind of like what we're running this season, keep it relative to the current meta maybe, but probably not spending as much time on those as we've talked about a lot of these in the past. If you want to go back and look, and we will be referencing each of those previous episodes whenever we talk about the GMs for this season, starting in about a month in mid-January. I'll tell you what's not coming back from previous season, brand new, we have Heist Battlegrounds. This is kind of like our new 3-man activity, and it's kind of like the Battlegrounds meets Warmind Bunkers from like Season of the Worthy, and I think that it's pretty good, and I think that there's a couple factors that are affecting the way that they feel, but I'd be interested, Impetus Court, how are you guys feeling about this new player activity?
Well, I'm truly loving it. Add density. Big thumbs up.
There it is. I knew that word was coming.
That is the trademarked Court. Add density is really good, but there also is an additional modifier. This is on the actual playlist activity, not individual nodes for the Battlegrounds. But the playlist has a modifier where it basically has you always set 5 level, light level, power level, whatever you want to call it, below the enemies you're damaging. So there is just a slight element of, you're not doing as much damage, you're not steamrolling through, at least compared to when you do just pick a Heist Battleground manually. You do, swan through, glide through, destroy all the enemies, but with this one it is a little bit difficult, not difficult, but there's just a little bit of a resistance for various builds, and I have been having a lot of fun, not just on Hunter but also Titan and Warlock. I was speaking to these guys just before we started recording, just how fondly I've been enjoying Arc and Void Warlock and Arc Titan. So I've been giving them a little bit of a run through these playlist activities for the Heist Battlegrounds, and a lot of fun, very enjoyable when you do have that slight resistance, but you do have the synergy, the sort of power fantasy behind all these Light 3.0 and Stasis reworks. It is just a joy. It's a lot of fun. I am personally really enjoying the Heist Battlegrounds. Impetus.
Yeah, I think this is my favorite seasonal activity of the year. Definitely because of the number of enemies, but then also that fantastic modifier. I can't say this enough. Bungie, please include this on all future seasonal activities. Like, it doesn't step on the toes of the power fantasies, Court just said. But it's also a perfect activity to really just test out different builds without having to go into a a certified legend difficulty content. I mean, I was playing around with some different weapons, some stuff that I'd been making at the end of last season, and I took it in just because that was on my characters at the start of this season. So having a great time getting to get a little bit of a challenge, seeing where some of the weak spots are in my builds, making some adjustments. So love it, love it, love it. The new Death Tongue enemy, or the mechanic in game where you have
is that the one that represses you or suppresses you?
It suppresses you and then also buffs the strength of all the enemies around it. Love that as well.
Yeah.
That's really fun to work with, or work against, I should say. Get that kind of getting that enemy defeated before the buff and the suppression takes place is a nice little challenge mid activity. But then once, if you're not able to get it done in time, you just got slightly tougher minor enemies and major enemies. And you get also that really terrifying noise that's made as soon as that obelisk gets activated. So love that feature as well. Really enjoyable. The bunkers look amazing too. The architecture, the environments. I mean, one of the more consistent things, of course, with Destiny is the environments and how awesome they look. But the Rasputin aesthetic is just top tier. Really, really great.
Next up, we have, I mentioned this just a second ago, but the story that is being pushed forward, developed by this season, has a lot to do with Anna Bray trying to get Rasputin out of his engram. Basically, Osiris convinces her that they need to go to Clovis Bray for help, which to me is really funny because, everybody values Rasputin so much for all that he knows about the collapse and the Golden Age and all these things, and Clovis Bray was there too, but nobody likes him, so they're like, that's fine, I guess that you can help, get this other guy from the Golden Age back so that we can actually move forward. And Mara Sov too, which I'm not. It's kind of she's kind of been on the the fringe of the story, so to say, as we start digging up Clovis.
Yeah, she showed up in some interesting aspects because I think the last time we got to hear from her was the Parasite quest at the start of Witch Queen. Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been quite quiet recently. The last full story was, it was the 4th season of Beyond Light. The massive 23-week season. So yeah, I am always happy to hear from Mara, see what she's scheming, see what she's up to. The actual story, we'll see how things, settle in terms of Rasputin, Osiris, Clovis Bray, and Anna Bray. But I'm more interested in how this will connect to Lightfall. We are obviously not far from there. So it's just this bridging the gap between Season of the Seraph and the sort of overarching theming, the story arc of Witch Queen leading into Lightfall. So I'm looking forward to what they make of things, see what cataclysmic event will happen. No doubt. Yeah. So we've been talking about the dungeon. We'll keep our kind of thoughts, feelings in general about the dungeon. For a future episode, we'll cover the weapons as well, and as Impetus said as well, we'll do breakdowns of the actual dungeon. But we'll keep this brief. I know folks may not have done the dungeon yet, so you may want to skip the next couple moments, but we'll just kind of recap of what is within the dungeon. We do have 2 reprised 7 Seraph weapons. That's the carbine, the auto rifle, and the officer revolver, which is the hand cannon. We don't have access to the full list of perks just yet, with the API not showing these. They haven't been reactivated, plus the API has been down for most of this weekend when we record. But we also we have some rootin' tootin' armor. We've all got some Stetson hats, some Wild West, looking really fine. I'm really digging this armor, and it's not really attached to Eververse. It's something that you can just go and acquire. You don't necessarily need to get the high stat gear. If you want to get that, that's fine. And obviously, Artifice armor is part of the master version of Spire of the Watcher. But I'm really digging the look of the actual armor. Well, we kind of got teased when we did our interview with Chris and Vivian all those episodes ago. We were one of the sort of top tier or top level questions was, are we going to get another Foundry? And he was asking us, Black Armory, season of season of Dawn weapons. Rasputin weapons, which we will talk about later as well. But Tex Mechanica makes its debut as a Foundry origin trait. Tex Mechanica has Tex balanced stock. So you will find these on the Spire of the Watcher weapons. I suspect, it won't come to, it won't be on the Reprise 7 Seraph weapons. They've got a different origin trait. But we have a list of them here that we'll talk about.
Is this the part where I have to talk about the sidearm? Is that
yes?
Did you guys conspire to make me talk about? Okay.
Yes.
Talk about the sidearm. All right. Yes, we do have. We have quite a few aggressive frame weapons here in the dungeon, and then also outside of it. We'll start with Liminal Vigil. That is the aggressive frame stasis sidearm. Has a very spicy roll that might get me to change my mind if it ever drops for me, but we won't spoil it for now. We do also have the long arm aggressive frame scout rifle. That's 120 RPM. That is a legendary DMT is probably the simplest way to explain it. That is ARC. Very excited to play with that. It sounds fantastic. We have the Wilderflight aggressive frame dual shot breech loading grenade launcher. That's a mouthful. This is Void. Very excited to play with that. Has some very spicy perks on it as well. Then our non-aggressive frame weapon in the dungeon, the Terminus Horizon. That is an ARC high impact frame machine gun. Very excited to play with that. Has some very fun perks as well. Who wants to talk about our dungeon exotic? Very interesting weapon.
I'm literally about to try to go solo this dungeon just so I can increase my drop rate for this thing. It is an exotic solar bow. And basically, its kind of function is that you get a kill, and you can create a guidance ring after you get a kill. And this is kind of like a very Rasputin-y themed weapon, right? So when you create this ring, it has that kind of reddish-orange glow and static to it. And then when you fire arrows through the guidance ring, they will kind of break out into a little cluster of seeking projectiles and deal more damage based on how far they've traveled since they crossed through that ring. And I think this goes out into like 30-something meters that it can target to past the ring. So it has this really very Warmindy look to it, right? And it deals a pretty good amount of damage based on kind of initial testing. We need to wait a little bit to see exactly how all that lands, but it looks quite strong, especially in some, kind of in-game PvE scenarios. There is a lot of, you clear some enemies, you move forward, and you take up behind cover. You clear some enemies, you move forward, you take up behind another piece of cover. And I think this will be absolutely great for situations like that, and definitely gives Tiku's run for its money.
Yeah, I was about to say it's kind of like a cross between Tiku's Divination and Outbreak Perfected, in the sense of you're putting a lot of damage downrange. I've seen a few charts. Again, things are still up in the air. There's a lot of kind of fluid movement in terms of DPS, but it is quite up there. Hierarchy of Needs is a very good, decent, primary weapon. For being a bow as well, so you're putting a lot of damage out in range. I think, we're all excited to try and get this big boy. If anyone's seen third-person view of people carrying it in their back, it is the size of a Guardian. It's lengthways, it is very tall. I do kind of dig the aesthetic for this exotic as well. It looks we'll probably talk about this many episodes this season, but the weapons team have certainly been firing on all cylinders here. We'll talk about Spire of the Watcher, all its very interesting weapons in a future episode. We also have Deep Stone Crypt, Revamped Weapons, and the Origin trait. The Origin trait is Bray Inheritance. Dealing damage regenerates a small amount of ability energy. So think of Monte Carlo. When you do damage, it has that kind of slight bump in your melee as you're performing damage. So it's very similar to that. A reminder: posterity, trustee, heritage, succession, commemoration, and bequest will be the weapons that we'll be talking about in the future as well. We got currently we have one known exotic weapon outside of hierarchy of needs. What can you guys talk about with the seasonal exotic?
The Manticore, very, very interesting weapon. We did see a little bit of it in the trailer. This is a Void SMG, and it is, I think, the fantasy, because that's kind of how Bungie thinks of these weapons. The fantasy for this is aerial gameplay, which is not something that we talk about a whole lot in PvE until now. I think we're starting to maybe reconsider that with this weapon. So the idea here is that dealing damage with the weapon while you're on the ground charges up anti-grav repulsors. And then when you deal damage while you're in the air, it extends the anti-grav repulsors. It's a very interesting weapon to use whenever you see somebody using it, because they'll be floating in the air with these repulsors activated. It's a very cool effect. Again, really, really love the animations and the art that goes into making these exotic weapons. And then, of course, while you deal damage in the air, you increase the weapon's damage output. So you are meant to be in the air for a period of time firing this weapon. That is the fantasy for the Manticore. It is a Viced weapon, so it's got that very distinctive Viced SMG look. It looks gorgeous, and very excited. It does have a catalyst. It does have comes from the exotic quest that, of course, seasonal exotics have. So very excited to try that out. And there is a third exotic coming at some point, isn't there, Saint?
There is, and I think I'm pretty sure this one is very near and dear to the heart of a former Massive Breakdowns host by the name of Mercules. That is the Revision Zero Pulse Rifle, and that's about all we know. It's coming in a couple weeks, and it's a pulse rifle, and Merc is excited about it, which makes me feel like I should be excited about it. You know, something else I heard interesting about the Manticore is that it's basically like you're standing on a platform that the weapon is creating underneath you. So it counts almost like you're standing on the ground versus an actual aerial accuracy number. Which is an interesting thing. I know this is not a Crucible podcast, but for anybody that knows a lot about that system and basically the way that affects your aim assist, or doesn't affect your aim assist, I guess is a better way to put that, versus your traditional aerial accuracy. Even when you have a really high stat, I don't believe is retaining that aim assist. So it's like it really leaning in on that, which also like gives you that kind of risk reward bit. If I'm going to be, especially in PvE side, I guess Crucible too, but like if I'm jumping in the air, I'm kind of putting myself at a risk here, so I'm glad that there is some reward there. And I don't know, well, much more on the exotic once ever that starts dropping in game.
Yeah, a final note on, like, again, the weapons team are, I every season I kind of think, okay, I think they've reached the peak, the limit, like in terms of both creativity and technically, and then they bring something out like the Manticore. I'm just like, okay, I didn't even realize like this could be a thing in Destiny, is a gun that puts you up in the air, or, well, holds you in the air while you shoot. So it's a very interesting design, which again opens up all these different avenues, like what we've been saying over the past couple of seasons about elemental sandbox perks like Incandescent and Volt Shot and stuff like that. They've really, like, they're going down some very interesting avenues for a lot of these weapons. Something which maybe not can be said the same about the other side. We don't have exotic armor this season, but there's been talk, and I've seen it in the API as well, that there may be some delisted exotic armor. Now, that could be placeholder, it could be leftover, it could also be ornaments that haven't been put in yet. They're just basically just placeholders for the future, whether that's related to Lightfall and they're just preparing stuff. We don't know, but for the time being, at least by the time this podcast goes out, we don't have access to any exotic armor. This has happened before, hasn't it, though? I feel like we had a season before, and I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before, where we had no exotic armor. I believe it was
Arrivals. Was that right? No new exotic armor in
We've
season
definitely
of Arrivals.
had this before, yeah. I just can't remember when. To be honest, I think something that I feel like could do with a little bit of rework and overhaul is a lot of the exotic armor, and we'll talk about that again in a future, near future episode about what suggestions we could provide. But back to weapons, we have our usual playlist weapons. We've got Nightfall Trials, Iron Banner, and we've got Foundry and Playlist, and the Ritual Weapon. So we'll kick things off here with the Nightfall weapons. We have the Return of Hung Jury SR4, which is the Precision Kinetic Scout Rifle. This also comes with Omolon Fluid dynamics. As with all of the weapons that we're about to talk about here, they will come with a Foundry trait to boot. So it'll have the Nightfall or Strike or Crucible playlist origin trait, and it will also have a Foundry trait, which is a very good change here. So Hung Jury's back. I know that's near and dear to your heart there, Impetus. Mm-hmm. And we also have Wendigo, which is the old Pinnacle grenade launcher from many moons ago.
Yeah.
That is the adaptive arc heavy grenade launcher. And again, that also rolls with Omolon Fluid dynamics.
That's the first time I think that we've seen a ritual weapon come back in like a non, via a different avenue, so to say, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we've had perks that have showed up previously on Pinnacle/Pursuit weapons make an appearance. Explosive Light being an example of that, actually. And now we get the weapon that Explosive Light debuted on returning, and it does have Explosive Light. So we shall see if any of the other famous/infamous ones make a return. So yeah, very excited to go chase this again, or for me in this case for the first time, since I didn't unlock it back when it was in a quest, I believe. Yeah,
we've got the trials and the Iron Banner, right? I don't know if the new trials weapons are. I don't know if they're enough to get me out of the tower. Impetus, I don't know how you feeling about that.
Yes, so we have, I think, it's funny, that one of these weapons strikes me as a very PvP-oriented, but then the other one strikes me as a very PvE-oriented weapon. So we do have the Exalted Truth Adaptive Void Hand Cannon. Seems to be a bit of a replacement for Palindrome if you missed out on that. This does, of course, come with an Adept version. Very, very excited to dive into this. If you are a hand cannon enthusiast, this does have some pretty strong PvP perks. We also have the Unwavering Duty Adaptive Solar Machine Gun, which has my eye for the main reason that it does roll Ambitious Assassin in Column 3, has a very spicy perk now with the buff to Ambitious Assassin, so very excited. This does have some very interesting PvE perks in Column 4 as well, some damage perks that should make it a pretty tough, heavy hitting, I should say, ad clear weapon. So I don't know if I'll be able to go for the adept version of this in trials this season, depending on when it drops. But yeah, very excited to have this around for the next year or so to go chase when I have time for it. And then in the Iron Banner side of things, we do have two returning weapons, of course, the Dark Decider Rapid Fire Arc Auto Rifle that will have the Viced Stinger Foundry trait in addition to the Iron Banner Origin trait. and then the Gnora's Axe Slug shotgun, which is arc as well, and that gets Suro synergy. Dark Decider, just to keep an eye out on this is our first auto rifle with Volt Shot, so very, very interesting if you're a fan of that perk. Unfortunately, Column 3 is a little disappointing as far as the reload perks. You get Subsistence and then some PvP perks, so we'll see how quick it is to reload to get to that Volt Shot. But yeah, Rapid Fire Arc, Auto Rifle, Feistinger, and Volt Shot, very excited. And the Gnora's Axe has some more PvP-oriented perks and some pretty spicy stats as well for you slug shotgun users. I know that's a dwindling number with the changes to the pellet spreads for all shotguns that took place this season. So, and then in our playlist options here, any standouts that we want to talk about? We have a Stasis SMG in the Vanguard playlist that does roll with the Feistinger. That's Prolonged Engagement. Looks to be like a funnel web, a blue option here. Very excited to go chase that.
I'm definitely more excited for that than I was the pure poetry. Yeah, we went from 0 to 100 on this one.
Definitely agree. Yeah. Yes. Exact same model. You can also get Subsistence Frenzy on it. You can also get Headstone, so I think that'll be a great weapon to go proc some Stasis Elemental Wells for any Font of Might enthusiasts out there. Gambit is getting an aggressive arc sniper rifle, the Albruna D. This is, I think, this is our first since Vanilla D2, first Hake Elemental weapon. Very, very excited to play around with this. My second drop of it was triple tap vorpal weapon, so I'm very happy because I was quite unlucky in my macabre farming for season or Festival of the Lost. So I now do have a pretty decent arc aggressive frame sniper rifle. It is definitely built for damage. Again, sniper rifles aren't exactly meta, but that could change, of course. If anti-barrier sniper rifle ever comes back and is less than an arm and a leg, then I might consider busting this bad boy out. Crucible is getting the Blowout Adaptive Arc Rocket Launcher. This rolls with the Suro Synergy Origin trait, and it also gets Explosive Light. So if you missed out on the Hothead from the Nightfalls when that disappeared, you do finally have an arc adaptive frame rocket launcher to go chase in the Crucible. And then we also have a second Crucible drop from the newly reworked competitive playlist. This is Rose, our kinetic hand cannon. Kind of hard to classify it. It's a 140 RPM, but you do get the old 150 RPM lightweight frame bonus, and it does not roll with origin traits. It rolls with grips, which is something that previously was unique to exotics. So definitely spec'd for PvP. I think it has pretty much every desirable hand cannon PvP perk on it, and spread out pretty evenly across columns 3 and 4. So you're supposed to earn one of these a week per account, and correct me if I'm wrong here on that, but I was having some issues getting that to drop this first week. So you should be able to farm for one of these just by getting those placement matches in. There's a quest that you can pick up from Shax. Took me a minute to remember his name, but you do that quest and you should be getting at least one rose to drop, and then of course you'll get one from the competitive challenge per account per week, if I remember correctly. So we won't be talking too much about Rose.
A lot of new weapon archetypes this season. As we're going through this list, I'm thinking, kind of the new grenade launcher, right? Rose is kind of bending some archetypes, and there's a few other weapons that we'll see that kind of are pushing the lines a little bit on weapon archetypes. We got a few more Foundry weapons. A high-impact kinetic auto from Hake called the Lodbrok C, which is pretty interesting because it has osmosis in column 3, which if you are a long-term listener of the show, you know that seeing anything like adaptive or osmosis show up in column 3 is always a big deal. So not usually big on high-impact auto rifles, but this guy has some potential. I'm interested to see everything else it has in its trait pools. We have the Fortuna 59, a rapid-fire void sidearm from Suros. This is the first sidearm with golden tricorn. So if you are a sidearm enjoyer and you happen to play a lot of void, this thing could be quite strong, especially if you're going to be really close up in the mix. Those rapid fires, they really don't have a lot of range, but if you can land shots within about 5 meters and you don't mind being there, they can deal some decent damage. Avalon has a high impact stasis fusion rifle. I'm definitely gonna mess this one up. Aur Vanadi, Vanadil, I don't know. The Anvil FR6, I'm just going to call that for now, is, again, a high-impact stasis fusion, and it has reconstruction on it, which previously is something that we would only see on Deep Stone Crypt raid weapons, so that's getting moved around a little bit. And then finally from Vice, we have the Jarakara 3SR. That is a rapid-fire stasis scout rifle. Also the first stasis primary with golden tricorn. I think there was a bow that had golden tricorn a couple seasons ago. But I think that this will be much more popular than that for a few different reasons. But yeah, we'll get into some of those playlist breakdowns a little bit later on. And Court, you want to cap us off with our new ritual weapon for the season?
Yeah, we've got the Velas, or the Veals, as Brits pronounce it. Veals X. I'm just looking at Impetus's webcam and he's smirking away. Okay, just for you, Velas. The aggressive Void pulse rifle. Again, this is a Hacky Breach armaments weapon. So a ritual weapon that has all three of the playlist, the main ones, Strikes, Vanguard, Crucible, and Gambit, as well as Hacky Breach armaments. So you've got a fair collection of origin traits if you want to spec this out. It's another elemental weapon with Hacky Breach armaments. It is a set roll, of course. It's got chambered compensator, flared magwell. You've got a choice between repulsor brace in the third column, or tunnel vision, and golden tricorn, or kill clip in the fourth column. Very interesting to see repulsor brace there. I may need to bring this out and play around with it for if I'm not using collective obligation, just for that repulsor brace kind of action. As we said at the beginning of this episode, we're recording just before the Dawning event goes live, but there is a fair collection of weapons here. We have a brand new lightweight stasis pulse rifle. It's called Stay Frosty. And we have 4 reprised weapons. It's Cold Front, that's the aggressive kinetic SMG. Glacial Chasm, that's the high impact Void fusion rifle. We've got Avalanche, makes a return. I know that was kind of a fan favorite for a few folks back then. That's the adaptive solar machine gun. And we've got the Zypher, which is the adaptive stasis sword, which is the only, currently anyway, the only one that rolls with cold steel, which is the stasis elemental sandbox perk for swords. For the origin trait for the Dawning, we've got the Dawning Surprise, and it reads as: rapidly defeating targets awards a Dawning gift. Defeated powerful targets count as more than one. So I think that's we were kind of a quick discussion before this episode. This may be a kind of way to kind of get rid of FOMO. You would obviously have to have a weapon to begin with, but presumably these Dawning gifts will they'll drop in your consumables or your inventory, and you can then just open them up, and they'll reward you with the weapons that we've listed here. So looking forward to that. In terms of the season 19, season of the Seraph, we've got some craftable weapons. These follow the same last couple of seasons, where it's 5 red boxes each. Saint, I'll let you kick things off here.
Yeah, the first one up is the Disparity, an aggressive stasis pulse rifle. 2 aggressive pulse rifles this season. And this one rolls with Desperado, which is a first showing for an aggressive pulse rifle frame like this. And it also rolls with Hacky Breach armaments. So you kind of have we have our ritual weapon with all of its origin traits and everything. And then we have our seasonal weapon, but both really interesting aggressive pulse rifles there. And then next up is a Tripwire Canary, which is a lightweight arc bow that can also roll with Vice Stinger, which, as you recall, gives better draw time on your bow rather than ammo back in the mag. It won't just auto re-notch an arrow for you, but it will decrease your charge time, which is always really nice. It has some decent options there. Last one I'll mention here is Judgment of Kelgarath. This is another new archetype or sub-archetype within weapons for aggressive frame glaives. This is a solar weapon, and it quote, hard-hitting, slow melee, and ranged with a frontal shield. So kind of a bit of a variation on, I believe all the other glaives are adaptive, right? It's kind of like the base archetype there. And you would see a little bit of a difference between the exotics, but this is the first time we have a definitive second archetype here within glaives. And man, does it look good. I absolutely love the look of this thing. Definitely gonna be going after this one. Impetus, what else do we have this season?
I do need to correct you. I'm sorry, Saint, but Disparity is actually the second aggressive stasis pulse rifle to roll Desperado. You have forgotten about New Purpose from the Duality Dungeon.
Oh my gosh, dude. How could I?
So if your RNG had been very unlucky to you in the Duality Dungeon, congratulations. You can now craft pretty much the exact same weapon here in this season. So very, very nice. And this one also rolls with Hake, which is going to be great. But yes, our final few here going to be the Path of Least Resistance. This is our first legendary arc trace rifle. And you can additionally get the Omelon Fluid Dynamics origin trait to roll on top of the seasonal one. We do have our second aggressive stasis linear fusion rifle. This is Fire and Forget. So this is in Storm Chaser's archetype, and it is the second stasis one after Reed's Regret. It does also, like Reed's Regret, roll the Feist Stinger origin trait. So if you had been very unlucky in Trials of Osiris, or if that had been too intimidating for you to go and get a Reed's Regret, you now have access to a stasis linear fusion rifle that is also aggressive and craftable. So we're very excited to talk about that. And then our final weapon, this is Retrofit Escapade, the Rapid Fire Void Machine Gun, and this will roll with the Suros Synergy origin trait. Probably not too exciting for a lot of folks, but there is some pretty powerful stuff, pretty powerful perks rolling on this. I look forward to getting my hands on this weapon and then talking about it when we do cover our seasonal weapons. But the origin trait for the Seraph weapons is going to be Ambush, which reads improves range, handling, and damage against combatants during the opening moments of an engagement. Very difficult to probably test. I'm sure our Destiny Science nerds are wringing their hands over this one, but we're gonna hopefully try to lock down some hard numbers for you guys before we cover the seasonal weapons. But I don't know. This to me reads as probably on paper a little bit more useful in PvP, since opening moments of engagement don't matter too much in PvE. We want to be thinking about all moments of an engagement, especially when you're going up against some of the harder or tougher enemies like majors and mini bosses, champions, and stuff. But we shall see what that damage increase looks like. Range and handling, of course, very useful stats in PvE. I'm not going to downplay that, but I would imagine for some of our lower handling weapons like the aggressive Stace Pulse Rifle or an LFR, that will be useful for that opening burst. So again, we'll see how that plays out. We do have some refreshed weapons. Court, what is returning this season?
Yeah, so I talked about the Seraph weapons earlier on, the Carbine and the Officer Revolver, so they do make a return. But we also have the four old Ikelos weapons. That's the Hand Cannon, which is Precision Void. We've got the SMG, which is the Aggressive Arc. We've got the Shotgun, which is Rapid Fire Solar. And we've got the Sniper Rifle, which is Rapid Fire Solar. Some very interesting perks. They are in the API just now. I think a lot of folks have been going on about Volt Shot for the SMG. For the Hand Cannon, I do see golden tricorns in there, rapid hits in there, subsistence. We do have the sofa roll that we've not recently talked about, stats for all and one for all, but that is on hand cannon. So some very interesting rolls. Again, we'll talk about that in a future episode.
Brigands who?
Yeah, that's Brigand's Law was a season 18 weapon only. To wrap things off with the reprised and refreshed Ikelos weapons and the Seraph weapons, they get the origin trait called Rasputin's Arsenal, which is breaking a target shield partially reloads this weapon's magazine. So one of the more basic kind of style of origin traits may come into use. Again, this is more of a PvE perk anyway. You can do shield breaks in PvP, so that may come in clutch for some weapons. But if you're up against a lot of elemental shielded enemies, I'm actually looking at the hand cannon. It also rolls adaptive munitions, so you could play that into the sort of style for these weapons. So I think out of all the weapons that we've talked about, the ones I'm most interested in are the Ikelos weapons. I do want to get some hand cannons and SMGs, and again, the only, at least as far as we know, I think this is pretty much confirmed. Only the Ikelos weapons are craftable. So the 4 there, not the Seraph carbine and the officer revolver. And again, they require 5 red boxes each. We do have some new perks. I'm just going to quickly scan through these. We've got Cascade Point, final blows or sustained precision hits with another weapon increases this weapon's rate of fire for a short duration. We've got a new glaive perk, Close to Melee. Glaive projectile final blows improve glaive melee damage. Glaive projectile or melee damage extends the duration. We've got Offhand Strike. Final blows grant additional weapon range, stability, and accuracy when firing from the hip for a short duration. We've got Perfect Float. Being in combat for a moderate time increases airborne effectiveness, reduces flinch until you're out of combat. So think of Frenzy, really. This is kind of the aerial effectiveness Frenzy perk. Shot Swap. Final blows build and store charges, which allows you to swap and store this weapon at a faster rate. And finally, we've got Target Lock, which I think all 3 of us were quite interested in see how this performs. Damage increases the longer this weapon remains on target. I've heard of damage increases going up to around about 40%, which is, for a weapon perk, that's quite substantial. Now, it does require a little bit of upkeep. You got to keep that those shots on target. But if you pair that with Acton War Rig or anything that kind of replenishes your ammo, then you could keep that up nice and sustained. You guys got any thoughts on these new perks?
I heard you making a noise, Kabir, when we talked about Close to Melee.
Yeah, man, it's got me thinking, Worm Gods is on the table. We got a nice new damage perk. We got a glaive mod for damage reduction, right? In the artifact, which we'll talk about in just a second. I think I may be swinging around a stick this season a good amount, And Target Lock, is that's hot. Okay, that's got some potential right there.
Yeah, that's 4-0, not 1-4. 40% extra damage after a period of time. So, yeah, definitely look for that. And then in column 3, you'd want to be looking for triple tap, overflow, 4 times the charm. Any of those that are feeding you bullets, as long as you're staying on target for precision hits, that's going to be a pretty natural pairing there. So, very excited to see what gets that this season, and then what will get that in the future as well.
I was going to say, this is like, I've also thinking about this and realized this is Cold Heart's original perk on a legendary. It's interesting to see them, kind of dabbling in This is like an exotic, or previously what was like a D2 vanilla, like exotic little trait. But then so is like Cascade Point, it's like this weird other version of Desperado, right? Was the only rate of fire kind of increasing thing that we would see a lot. And now we've got kind of this other harmony type of option. And if that ever shows up with harmony, that is going to be a formidable combo. Absolutely.
So I was going to just list the weapons that have target lock, at least the ones that are on the API. We've got Lodbrok C, which does have 4th times the charm in column 3, as does Prolonged Engagement. That also has 4th times the charm. Avalanche, I'm not sure how this would work with Subsistence. If you can, technically speaking, if you can keep things on target between enemies, that does work with Cold Heart. You've got like this kind of very quick, brief duration before it sort of deactivates. So again, some testing will need to be done for other weapon perks like Subsistence. So that was Avalanche, and then the other one is Retrofit Escapade, which has 4th times the charm. So very interesting how those perks will interact with target lock. All right, I think we've got one last sort of major section here, which is we'll list the artifact mods before we round things off with sort of quality of life changes and just general thoughts that we've been experiencing over the week for season 19. Artifact mods for barrier champions. We've got Pulse Rifle and Bow. Overload is Scout. We've got Auto and SMG. That's just a combination one there. And we've got Void and Stasis Grenade, and that's 1 energy. For Unstoppable, we've got Hand Cannon. We've got Grenade Launcher, which is 7 energy. 7. And we've got Arc and Stasis Melee, which is 1 energy. For the miscellaneous champion mods here, we've got Advanced Scout, which is 1 energy, goes into your class item slot. Stun champions now receive 10% additional damage from teammates. So this is kind of like Power of Rasputin, where it's this kind of mini debuff effect, but it's not an actual debuff. So it does stack with debuffs like Tether, Empowering buffs, Font of Might, all that jazz. So if you're struggling for nuking and baking a champion, then you could utilize Advanced Scout. Countercharge does make a return. It's 3 energy. Stunning champions, whether that's yourself or allies, adds a stack of charged light. And of course, Lucent Finisher makes a big reappearance from way back in season 16. 3 energy, class item slot. Finishing a Lucent Hive, Light Bearer, or Champion spawns 1 heavy brick for yourself and your allies. Who wants to take the origin trait mods here?
I can do that for you. We've got our 2 here. Legacy Ambush. This is going to be 1 energy. Duration and effectiveness increase for the Ambush and Bray Inheritance origin traits. So Ambush is what shows up on our seasonal weapons, and Bray Inheritance is the Deep Stone Crypt weapons. And then our second one is going to be Sharp Shooting, also 1 energy. That is an increase in the duration and effectiveness of the Text Balanced stock, which is our Dungeon Spire of the Watcher origin trait, and then Vice Stinger, which shows up on a number of weapons. We also have new this season, this is kind of a bit of an experiment here, retrofit mods. So these are stat bumps that basically go on pieces, different slots on your armor. So on the legs, you can now get a +5 to your mobility. This will go in that final column instead of the first column armor slot. So if you need just a little bit of bump of a mobility. In the chest armor, you can get +5 to your resilience stat if you would like to slot that into the 4th column instead of your first. So kind of an interesting little experiment. I don't know if I'm going to spend energy on these just to get me all the way to that even tier increase. I think that will matter probably a little bit more maybe in PvP or rather than PvE. But if you are stuck at 95 or 96, 97 resilience, and you just need a little bit more of a bump, and you can't have any room in your first slots on all 5 armor pieces, you could put this on your chest. I think there's just going to be more benefits for other things, but it's cool to see them experimenting with these kinds of mods here. Yeah, we'll see how this plays out. Mobility resilience, obviously going to be very impactful for hunters, and resilience, of course, for all 3 classes. But yeah, we'll see how this plays out. Are you guys kind of interested in this concept? Do you want to see more of this, or does this not really tickle your fancy?
I mean, they're kind of expensive, but like,
yeah,
I could, I can see the situation in which I'm at 94 or whatever, 95 points of resilience, 96 points of resilience on my new hunter build that I'm trying to put together, and this does push me over the edge. But I definitely think it was very intentional, well, at least like on this initial one, that like my chest armor piece is going to take up my resilience versus a resistance mod. So there's like kind of some balance, some trade-off there. But if you this is like the thing that you need to push you over the edge to hit just the right build numbers, I get it. And I think the mobility one will definitely be popular, especially for my hunter brethren running around trying to get those dodges back as fast as they can.
It'll help out for those that are maybe forever stuck at 90 and you just want to slam 2 mods in, and you've got like whether it's a triple or even a quadruple 100 build. So those are possible even without these mods. But yeah, for those that are wanting those delicious 4-stat 100 credentials, then go for it with these mods. But yeah, it's a nice little experimentation. I think for the future, I would like to see more of this than those huge overpowered mods like focusing lens, and as much fun as those were, I think they do break the game in more of a bad way than a good way. So these kind of other type of mods are definitely welcome.
Yeah, and we have one more interesting chess piece mod this season that I wanted to mention real quick, which is I believe it's called Elemental Diffusion, and that has been. I think that it's currently bugged right now if you're wearing multiple copies of it, so we should probably mention that. And I believe it gives 5% to every element, right?
Resistance, yep.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. They've done a lot of double dipping in the previous seasons, where you get one that was kind of a combination Arc and Solar, Void and Solar, Arc and Void, and now they're just going to give us all 3. And, it's only a little bit of a bump, but if you're in an encounter where you're facing all the damage types, that's kind of nice, It's definitely not something I thought we would see, so it's mixing it up a little bit. Finally, we do have some pretty strong mods in the final column. Speaking of mixing it up, first one off the bat that I want to mention is something I actually just mentioned just a second ago when we were talking about the new Glaive perk, is Passive Aggressive Guard, which first of all is just an S tier name for a mod. This is a 6 energy class item mod, so a bit expensive, but similarly to the sword version in previous seasons, you receive less damage from combatants that are close to you while you're wielding a glaive. Definitely going to be fun for some builds. I think that there are some other items here that are going to push this out because it costs 6 points. I would love to have seen this cost 5, but I get why, I get why it's in the situation that it's in. Next one up is Weakened Clear, back from Breach and Clear, but now kind of working with our Void verbs. This is a 5-point class item mod, damaging bosses, champions, or breaking a combatant shield with a grenade launcher reloads your stowed weapons and weakens the combatant. This is a 15% debuff, so similar to your void grenades and things like that, and that will last for 20 seconds. This is, again, considered part of that void sandbox, so it will interact with things like Echo of Harvest, Stylish Executioner, Repulsor Brace, works with these, which is absolutely great. I think that I think that 20 seconds is really long. I don't know. Do either of you guys recall how long Breach and Clear was?
It didn't matter because Anarchy just kept refreshing the timer, so
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
that's where they've kept. I suppose it's the same here because it will keep refreshing the timer. So it says 20 seconds. I've got a sneaky suspicion that maybe, I'm not sure. I'm not going to call it a bug just yet, but I've been asked if I know Fallout. He approached me and was asking about some of these mods and just giving like a rundown because I'd already tested some of them or verified with other scientists, and he was perplexed that it was 20 seconds, and he went and did it himself, and he was like, "Yeah, it's definitely 20
That's
seconds."
like two
I'm just
champion sun cycles. All right, that seems like
yeah, it's quite nuts. So Anarchy will just keep refreshing that if folks are still using Anarchy, which they perfectly welcome to keep using Anarchy, especially with Unstoppable. But yeah, that champion's probably going to be long dead before the debuff expires.
Yeah. Well, now I was even thinking you just shoot that thing with your Pardon Our Dust or what is that? You have Forbearance
or that new
Salvo.
Void. Yeah, grenade launcher that's in the dungeon.
Yeah, I mean, we got options, and now it's like I don't even know. Like, yeah, Wither Horde is great, and Anarchy are great, but even if you just want to hit them with a special, they're still going to be debuffed until they're dead, which is great.
Cool reimagining of Breach and Clear, if I must say so. I love that. I'm hoping that we can maybe see a similar rework to something like Particle Deconstruction with one of the other sandboxes. That's a really creative reimagining.
Definitely agree. We just have a couple more here. The second to last one is Monochromatic Maestro. Dealing damage with elemental abilities grants increased damage to weapons of the same element. Dealing damage with weapons grants increased damage to elemental abilities of the same element. And this is 10% and it lasts for 5 seconds. So we have got Golden Tricorn for your subclass, essentially, here. And we've just gone full-blown with this one. And I've been hearing some good things about its damage stacking. Court, this does indeed stack with our other empowering buffs, right?
Yeah, so it does stack with debuffs and empowering buffs like if you so choose, you could... Monochromatic Maestro's 5 energy, isn't it? Or is it 6?
Yeah.
I don't have the value there. So you can stack it. So empowering buffs like Bubble, Well of Radiance, etc., and Font of Might. Now, I think there's been a slight... I didn't actually put this in the script because I'm still looking at it myself, but there is a slight kind of hierarchy you have to apply these. So I think you have to do Monochromatic Maestro first, then Font of Might. Because the way I see it, it's sharing some elements of Font of Might's kind of technical, on the UI buffs and debuff screen. There is a little bit of technicality, linkage between this and Font of Might. But generally speaking, it should be stackable, and 10%, it's another kind of apply it, and you'll 10%'s quite maybe a small number compared to 40%, but if you stack it, it's multiplicative damage. So a lot of damage there.
6 energy for monochromatic. That is 6 energy.
I was just thinking you could pair it with Weak and Clear, but no, you can't do that.
But there is something that you can pair with Weak and Clear. Impetus, you wanna cover our crescendo mod here of the season?
Last but certainly not least is Solo Operator. This was hinted at in one of the TWABs, one of the last TWABs for last season. This one is going to be 5 energy. While you are the only member of your fire team, you deal increased damage to all combatants. And we'll specify here, only member of your fire team. This is solo activities, patrols, dungeons, raids. Not that this is going to be hugely helpful unless you're an absolute gamer. Strikes, basically anywhere that you are by yourself. If you are with your own or force match-made fire team, it will not work. And we've been hearing reports that it will deactivate if someone joins the fire team and just will not work after they leave. So you will need to refresh the activity instance for it to reproc. So go in solo, turn off your matchmaking preferences so that no one can join you, and that is how you can guarantee solo operator. That is a 15% damage increase to all outgoing damage. That is your weapons, your abilities, mods, anything, etc. And most importantly, it does stack with debuffs, empowering buffs, font of might, etc. Very interesting mod, very cool mod. And free damage for the cost of 5 energy against all combatants, which is, I think, probably the biggest part here. You're going to be getting a free damage buff against everything, which is fantastic.
This is the season if you want to do your solo flawless dungeons, or if you're wanting to just bolster some exotic drops over in the lost sectors, then yeah, this is kind of a must-have. It's free damage. It's literally, for existing, you get 15%. It's it's a very interesting one, and 5 energy does give you space to put weaken clear on if that's what you're using as well. And again, it's a class item slot, so it doesn't take up any champion mods elsewhere.
Perfect at lost sectors.
Yeah. So finally, before we wrap things up here, we've just got some quick quality of life and other changes that we'll kind of discuss, give a kind of very brief feelings. Year 4 weapons have been added to Dares of Eternity's weekly rotation. The Year 3 weapons have been removed. So both Year 4 and Year 3 weapons will remain in Xur's massive loot pool. There's a lot of weapons in his his loot pool now. And finally, and certainly not least, we did get our sort of medium-sized update, a little kind of refresh to some of our abilities. I'll start us off here as the resident hunter here. I have been sort of touching all the subclasses, all the elements, and I have noticed a really decent change with the shadow shot. So previously, Deadfall was the lifetime, just as base, if it didn't connect anything, it was 8 seconds. That was now 12 seconds. So it's got a much longer upkeep and lifetime compared to before. And obviously, if you keep tethering more enemies, that timer just keeps resetting. Essentially, that's how Deadfall works. Mobius Quiver got the opposite, where it's now you've got a much shorter lifetime. And I have noticed that specifically because I used to run Mobius Quiver pretty much 24/7 as the kind of my preferred subclass being Void. And it is very noticeable going from 8 to 6 seconds. On paper, it's not so much, but in practice, those tethers do not last. The tether anchors do not last at all. So I may kind of shifting back to Deadfall. In terms of other things, I haven't really used Void over Shield much. Maybe more of a kind of end game stuff, or if I want to do some Lost Sector or solo flawless stuff. Going from 25% to 50% is a substantial buff, though, and there's a lot more kind of, Pulsar Brace is becoming more of a mainstream perk now, with it being out since that was season 17. Repulsor Brace was introduced.
Yep.
Yeah, so a couple seasons now. Stasis Hunter, I don't tend to use Winter Shroud. Fragment slot did get increased from 1 to 2. May have another look at that with Whisper of Rending, which has been getting a lot of chatter and commentary, with it now affecting all primary weapons, not just kinetic and stasis. Get your Volt Shot SMG and get Rending on if you're planning to freeze a lot of enemies. And finally, what else did I kind of tweak around here? It was actually to do with other classes. Again, I've been doing a lot of Stormcaller with the buff to Arc Souls. Lots of Arc Souls doing a lot of damage. In fact, I was playing Deep Stone Crypt with Impetus last week, and the the Arc Souls are extremely keen. They're so keen, in fact, that they were shooting the wrong fusees in the first encounter. We were in shambles.
Going sicko mode. Yeah, it was.
We were
running around trying to wait for the timer to go out as they're currently shooting away at the wrong fuses.
And because I think yourself and I was on Arc Hunter as well, so I was empowered. Sorry, not empowered, but amplified. So I was getting the even juiced up version, and they shoot a lot faster. So I was just like, oh no, I can't have this. We're
gonna wipe. Arc Souls are great. It really, I mean, Stormcaller, the neutral game, is I think really on par with Voidwalker now. It's really, really good. Of course, the two melees also, Ball Lightning, Chain Lightning, did get buffed. I haven't been playing with Stormcaller personally. I've been on Stasis for my Warlock so far, but that has been really nice to see. And then, of course, Chaos Reach. I know, Court, you actually have personal experience using this. Did jump down 2 tiers for the base cooldown. So from 916 to 735 is our new time to get Chaos Reach up from base or from tier 3. So you were popping quite a few Chaos Reaches last night, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, just comboing that with, I think I had the the Well mod that provides you, it sets your intellect to tier 10. So I had...
Was it Wisdom?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so I had that on, just, using your kinetic weapons, your primary weapons to do most of the damage, gives you a lot more passive super regen. So it's now in tier 4. It's in the same tier as Hunter's Deadfall, Silence and Squall, and Blade Barrage. Titans don't have anything in tier 4 because they've got Bubble in tier 5. Again, we'll talk about our more kind of opinionated pieces regarding the sort of reviews of these subclasses and the elements in the future. But while the neutral game for Stormcaller is so much fun, a lot of zapping, a lot of zooming, and a lot of Arc Souls, the Warlock supers are much to be desired. It's really unfortunate. Chaos Reach just doesn't quite do enough damage. It's I'm getting it up a lot of times, but it's more for ad clear, which I don't think Chaos Reach should be for ad clear. It should be for that supreme burst damage. When you want to burst down a champion, I wasn't really doing that. So anyway, that was my experience with Warlocks, and yeah, some good changes for Hunters.
Sam, what have you been playing? Have you noticed any changes? I know Solar Titan, of course, we had the restoration tweaks since you guys were just living forever. Have you played on Solar this season so far, or have you been on God mode and Arc?
I've been on Arc. Storm grenades are still doing just nutty things. Okay, let's be clear. They got like a 20%-ish damage output total nerf, but man, they're still just so strong. The restoration, I think, is probably more noticeable just at the rate that you that activates. The restoration times 2 is honestly hard to get these days. You got to be in some specific situations, like I know, like enhanced Warlock grenades, right? Give resto times 2, and I mean that's still super strong, but it does feel a little bit slower. If you wearing something like Loralee, you can still pretty much, there could be situations where you need to change your exotic because you're not dying quick enough and things like that. But maybe not quite as fast as that region has just gotten cut down a little bit. Honestly, I'm with the whole debuff change. I think that makes Void Titan more attractive because Void Titan has a lot of ways to build into getting a lot of debuff grenades. If you're like, if I'm using like a Hoyle Titan with some Vortex grenades, an Echo of Undermining and Echo of Persistence makes for like a really nice high uptime debuff build if I am not spending if I'm not using Weekend Clear, right? If I'm not going to be using a grenade launcher and with the stronger overshield, which again, Titans have like really easy access to, I think that Void Titan is honestly in quite a good spot this season. So I'm pretty interested in spending some time on that. And they have overload grenades too. So I think that Arc Titans are still like the king of damage output. Solar Titan is gonna like keep you alive and can provide a lot of buffs. And then I think Void Titan has a really strong argument going into like in-game activities and GMs and stuff like that this season. I'm probably going to be taking a lot of Void Titan, running, a litany of exotics. We'll see what kind of lands on there. Maybe even some second chance gauntlets if I'm feeling like just getting crazy, Yeah, I really want to enjoy it. I want that to be good, right? We talked about this a little bit before, but like, the additional ways to interact with champs is like big for me. I want to have reasons to like really lean in on that,
Well, 4 of the GMs this season will have barrier champions, so go nuts.
And I think I think Void is the most, right? Do we have 3 GMs with a Void? Singe, Glassway, Birthplace, and then Inside Terminus. So that will be that'll be a good Void run here. I'll round things out with, I've been on Shadebinder. That's what I've kind of been stuck with ever since I lost access to Dim this weekend. So I've been playing the dungeon and other seasonal activities on the Warlock on Shadebinder, and that actually did get some very handy tweaks. So Glacial Harvest, the Stasis Shard creation, has had a reduced cooldown per 6 shards from 15 to 10 seconds. I have been noticing that a lot, which has been really nice. That's been very effective. Cold Snap grenades did also get tweaked. Again, I run Osmiomancy gloves on Shadebinder, so I don't use the base Cold Snap because I'm turning them into turrets, but I think I did have one or few chances where I threw it out. The tracking was changed, so it should have been more effective, and I have noticed that it's pretty effective. Again, the issue, of course, is if you throw it out at an enemy and they are mid-jump, it will just completely mess with the Cold Snap, and I don't know if there's anything to do on the hardware or software side to change the tracking for how Cold Snap interacts with enemies in the air. So that might just be something I have to deal with. But for enemies on the ground, it's fast and it immediately tracks them. And that 0.5 seconds after creation is very noticeable. So that is helpful. I think Cold Snap is probably best when you have a group of enemies and you just throw it out there and let it kind of pick an enemy to go after. And then, of course, you start shattering for those effective shatter damage against enemies. So, it's strong. I do want to play with the Duskfield Grenade just to see how that also plays out, because that did get tweaked as well in PvP. But Shadebinder is still feeling really strong here. Again, Arc, Void, and Stasis continue to be some heavy hitters for the Warlock subclasses. So can't recommend those enough. Do want to play with Whisper of Rending as well. I think that could lead to be very very powerful for my defensive Stasis builds. So yeah, good changes all around. Looking forward to that big settling that will be coming sometime post Lightfall. But that's very far away. Very, very far away.
All right. I think that kind of rounds out our first impressions of season 19 here in episode 43. Thanks for listening in to another episode, Podcast versus Enemies. Thanks to all the patrons who support the show, make it a reality each week. And thank you to our audio engineer, MisterSudden, for helping us sound great each and every episode. My name has been Sink Beer. You can find me by that name on YouTube, Twitter, Discord, Twitch, all around the internet, and usually in the tower. Court, where can folks find you?
Yeah, I'm Court. You can find me over on various social media websites as Court Projects, on Discord as Court, and you can find my documentation and spreadsheets, which we have been referencing this episode, over on the Massive Breakdowns website, along with some amazing content and other applications, spreadsheets, documentation from the Destiny science community. Impetus.
My name is Impetus. You can find me by that name in Destiny and on Discord, and as Impetus always on Twitter. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week. Have a great holiday.